my past and other people's opinions of me don't define my future. And so at that point, it was like the door is open for a massive opportunities. And it was then that I decided to put that mission on my table to go, all right, we're going to change the legacy of the Allen tribe.
Welcome to the Conscious Investor. Let's get started. Conscious Investor, welcome back to the show. As always, I'm thrilled that you are here. And you know what? If you haven't already left a rating and review, oh my gosh, I think we're at 109, 110 reviews right now. And you know what? Those reviews, as you know, are just total wind in my sails. And it also gives me that feedback to know what's serving you well, because that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that we're creating content with guests that are going to amplify your life, lift you up, and help you take that first next step in anything that you're pursuing, from your personal growth and development, from your faith to your investing, every part of your life. So make sure, drop that review, and also bonus, if you share with somebody that you care about. But let's dive into it, because I am absolutely thrilled. For the first time ever, Conscious Investor, first time, I am sharing space with a fellow North Idaho resident. And this is absolutely amazing. Actually, that's not true. Second time, because a friend of mine up here in Bonners Ferry was actually on the show one time. But oh my gosh, Erik is down in Coeur d'Alene. He is a fellow podcaster, has an amazing podcast. You need to run and check it out, because, we like to support complimentary. Like, you're always looking for this type of content that is going to be lifting you up. And Erik's show is going to lift you up in such a powerful way. So you want to make sure you go check out the Erik Allen show as well. But you know what? Enough about me and me introducing somebody that you haven't even heard yet. So let's just welcome Erik to the show. Erik, so happy to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for that amazing introduction, by the way. And congratulations on the success on your podcast. Over 100 reviews and ratings. That's amazing in the podcast world. People don't realize that podcasting is tough. And for us to be hitting 100 reviews and things like that, that means that you're legit and you're actually changing lives with that. So congratulations to yourself on that.
Well, thank you. And I just have to high five. If you're watching on YouTube, you get 2 high fives. But the listeners, and I know you know this, it's just when and you get that feedback from that listener, it's just, every time I get a new review, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's going somewhere and it's supporting people. This is amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm super honored to be here.
Yeah. Well, Erik, you have a really interesting background, and I want to hear about your background a bit, just so that people have context and everything. But I just want to give a shout out, because I kind of do things a little bit Pulp Fiction-esque, I guess, sure. Where it's a little backwards order a little bit. But I am absolutely stoked about this company that you just launched with your friend, Operation Life, because it's something that I am very passionate about. And a lot of you conscious investors are in the same boat I am. You have 50% of my home is made up of men. And a lot of us have brothers and uncles and cousins. And right now there's a movement in the masculine work community that is really exciting. And I love what you're creating. So can you just give us, I can't wait till the end to say, hey, pitch this. Can you tell us about Operation Life?
Yeah. Operation Life. It started by my buddy, Ian, who's a sergeant in the Army. And amazing accolades for this guy, many awards, and very smart when it comes to business and strategy and marketing and things like that. And then myself, I'm a John Maxwell certified coach, been podcasting for 5-6 years now, and really approach that as the the experience side of things. And so what Operation Life is all about is connecting men that are feeling lost and confused in their life. They might be 40, they might be 20, they might be 30. Like, what's my purpose? And so what we're doing is we're bringing guys together on a weekly call every single week where we're going to talk about our 4 Ps. We call it the 4P framework, and it's purpose, prosperity, passion, and power. And we come in and we just talk about this stuff. We talk about business, we talk about marriage, we talk about accountability. We have an optional like Bible study if people want to join it. There's a monthly book club, and it's a 1-year commitment. And really, we don't really say, hey, you need to join every call because we're going to record them. But every single week, Ian and myself and hopefully some other guys are going to be jumping on that call. And we're going to be talking about stuff and how we can help each other and connecting and hold each other up for those struggles that us as men really do feel, but are kind of afraid to share. And so we want to make it a safe space for men to just be emotional and share their emotions. Like, man, marriage kind of is struggling right now, or man, this job kind of sucks right now, or I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills this month. Like, we want to jump in and help lift guys up. And so that's what Operation Life is all about. We're super excited to be able to have that opportunity just to be speaking life and hopefully just get lifted up ourselves too.
Gosh. Okay. I love this. You already know we just spoke off air, and like, I absolutely love things like this because I am a firm believer that men, and I'd love to hear your input on this, because if it seems from my perspective that, you know, it has been hard for men to be connected with their emotions and to be able to have that ability to have that space to decompress and not have to feel like I have to keep my shoulders like super broad and I can't shed a tear and I just need to be so stoic, for lack of a better term. By the way, conscious investor, we talk about stoicism a lot. You know that that isn't the definition of being stoic.
That's awesome.
So how, like, what is this shift that's happening, in your opinion, in the masculine community? Why do you think it's coming about right now? Why do you think men have had so much pressure to keep all of this within themselves?
It might be a generation thing. I know for me, I'm 43 years old. I didn't share my story till I was 39 years old. I just held on to those emotions. I think when we were growing up, it was like, you can't show emotions. You can't show that you actually have a heart, you know, and if you're watching something that might put a tear in your eye, you got to like leave the room. Like, you know, that's just the generation that I grew up in. But I think that there's this worldly shift of where you can't show masculinity because it's going to offend somebody out there. And as men, I think we should be able to show our emotions, but also show our strengths, show our weaknesses. How can we lift each other up? I think there's too many people that are trying to do this thing on their own. And I think if you can get a community of men together that can lift each other up, you know, Ed Mylett talks about this. If you go, you're walking around at 80 degrees, you want to go find guys that are walking around 120, and just being in their presence is going to lift you up. And that's really our goal, is we want to find guys that are like on their way up or in there and just feeling like they're lost. And we want to help go alongside with them and just have this amazing opportunity to have a great conversation with them and lift them up and introduce them to some other people. It's all about networking and building relationships with Operation Life. Gosh,
I love that. I love the ecosystem. If I were a man, I would be joining this. And conscious investor, you know, I believe completely 1,000,000% in the power of coaching and community. And in this type of setting, you know, with Operation Life, it is that collaboration between coaching, mentoring, and community. And that's where you want to be if you want to go to the next level. And remember, any amount that it's an investment, and I'm not getting anything off of this, y'all. Like this is how much I believe in it and believe in you. And, you know, like just leading a high caliber life of purpose. And so, you know, if you're investing in yourself, that investment goes every single place with you. And it will have a powerful ripple effect and bring so much fulfillment and satisfaction. So make sure hopefully we'll throw a link into the show notes about, you know, it's like, so you can easily go and find it. And we'll have links so that you can go stalk Erik and check out his podcast. But, you know, now since I said we're doing this like Pulp Fiction style, now let's talk about your story. Like, how did you even get to this point to where you're like, I'm going to create, and spoiler, I know, but it's so cool for people to hear this and unpack this. But, you know, how did you get to the point to where, okay, I'm now in this position where I am skilled and equipped and I can help raise up other men? You had to walk a lot of coals to get here.
I did. You know, it was I grew up in what I thought was a typical household, went to Sunday school, played little league, and life was great, And then my parents got divorced when I was 11 years old. It was the wildest thing. I'd never heard anybody had gotten a divorce. I didn't even know what that word was. And so it was kind of a shock to my system. My mom immediately gets together with this guy who is very physically abusive right from the start. I remember the first time I met him, he was already hitting her. And it was like, why are you staying with this dude? And I mean, there was moments where I was like outside of the house in elementary school, looking into their bedroom window, and he'd be hitting her with a cordless phone, like back when those were up.
Oh my gosh.
The police would come. My mom would never press charges. I never understood why. And then they did the smart thing. They got pregnant. And so they moved us from Eastern Washington, where I grew up, out to Stevensville, Montana, population 1,200 people. We lived in a, super tiny town, and we weren't actually in the town. We were on the highway. So we weren't actually even in the city. And there was these 5 acres that they rented this house on. And the house had 3 bedrooms. It was one for them, one for my sister, who's 4 years younger than me, and then one for my brother, who's about 3 months old at the time, my half brother, the baby they had together.
So you don't have a room?
I don't have a room. They said, Eric, you can live in the garage. I literally had a plastic tarp down the middle of the garage, and my bed was on one half, and the other half was where the truck pulled in. And luckily my half had the fireplace. So I got semi-warm during the middle of the winters when, it was negative degrees. It was cold.
Oh my gosh.
Like 10, 12 blankets on top of me just to stay warm in the night. I remember there were some cold nights out there. But there was this moment where I was 13 years old, brushed my teeth. They came home arguing. Wasn't anything different than any other night. Mm-hmm. But I felt in my heart in that moment, God was going, dude, you got to turn around and see what's going on. And so the house, the way it was set up was behind me was the pantry was the kitchen to the pantry door to my garage bedroom. And as I turn around the corner, I see him on top of my mom just going, boom, boom, one after the other, just shots to her face. I'm like, man, I got to do something. And fear hit me. I was like, dude, you can't go do that. And then I was like, nope, I have to. And I kind of stepped through that fear. And I said, I've got to make a point that this has got to stop. Mm-hmm. And so I walked up behind him. I grabbed a cast iron pan and I swung as hard as I could. And I split the back of his head open. And he turned around. It didn't knock him out. He said, what then? As he said that, I took another swing and split his forehead open. Still didn't knock him out. Blood's coming down his face. I fell on the floor. My mom's standing over me. She's like punching him in the face. Like cops finally show up. It's chaos. Blood's on the wall. I mean, it is just nuts. And cops take him to jail. My mom doesn't press charges. He gets released the next day. I feel like I'm the hero. I stopped this, fight from happening. My mom and him get together and they go, yeah, he doesn't really get to live here anymore. So I got kicked out of the house. I had 3 months left of my freshman year of high school. So I went and lived with my buddy Forrest in downtown Stevensville. I'd slept on his hardwood floors at his house, and me and him would walk to school every morning. And that set me on this path of destruction over the next 10 years of my life, where I'd go to jail at 18. I got kicked out of my dad's house 2 weeks after I graduated high school. I moved 21 times between ages of 18 and 21, and then battled addictions throughout the whole time. And then by the time I was 21, I was $28,000 in debt and had to file bankruptcy.
Dang.
So
that's a worthy pause because I
catch my breath there a little bit.
No, not even just for you to catch your breath, but for processing time. Right. So I'm familiar with your story, but whenever you hear a story, it's even more real and more intense. And, I grew up in a home where there was zero physical abuse, and just to have that as this is just the norm. This is an ecosystem. And you know what, conscious investor, my heart breaks because statistically speaking, many of you have experienced that kind of environment. Mm. And I'm sorry that you have faced that. And that trauma, that level of trauma. I mean, no wonder, you were in addiction. No wonder if you don't have that type of structure, right? If you don't have the support around you. So now we have to hear what happens next.
Yeah. It was struggling times, after filing bankruptcy. I was actually working as an intern for Universal Records out in Seattle, Washington. It was my dream job. That's
a cool job. I'm like, that's a cool job. No wonder you're a podcaster.
I loved it. It was the best thing. And I actually had to lie to get into Universal Records. But they said, well, you need to be in college. So I went and paid the community college $300 for an internship class. Never showed up for class. Took my receipt to Universal. Said, look, I'm in college. Said, great, you're in. So I got it. That's how I got into Universal. But I was there for a year and it was my dream job. I was going to 2 to 3 concerts a week. I had open tab. I was living the rock star lifestyle. I was backstage. I was doing drugs with rock stars. And it was awesome at the time. Now looking back, I'm like, probably not a smart move. But at the time I was kind of living it up. and then Napster hit. If people remember Napster, it actually killed the music industry. And I was bottom of the totem pole. I got laid off with half the office. And so I went into this deep, dark depression. I was working at Starbucks at night, and I'd get off work. I'd go to the grocery store, grab a 6-pack of beer, go to Hollywood Video and rent my VCR, VCR. I don't even know if I had a DVD player. It was a VHS. And, I'd go back. I
remember these days.
Like go back to my ghetto apartment and watch a movie and pass out, drink myself to sleep every night. And there was a night that at Starbucks, this girl walked in who I'd seen her there before. She doesn't drink coffee. And she said, "Hey, we've got this cool college age event down in our church. Would you be interested in going?" And I'm depressed. I have no friends. She's good looking. What time do I need to be there? That's what's going through my mind. Mm-hmm. And so I go, yeah, let's go down. So I go down there, and all of a sudden I felt like God was planting a seed in me, because there was these 4 or 5 guys that I knew from 5-6 years earlier. Man, I haven't seen you forever. And I was on the other side of the state from where I grew up. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the kind of the shift in my life at that point. Because a month later, it was Easter 2004. I went out and partied like any other night. And I woke up Easter morning, my buddy's basement, surrounded by 10, 15 guys. And I felt God go, dude, you're going down this path that's going to end your life. You need to make a change. Mm-hmm. And so I felt in that moment, for me, I gave my life to Christ right there and then. I quit cold turkey, drugs, drinking, cigarettes, everything in that moment. I said, God, I'm done. And I called that girl up. I got her voicemail. I said, "Hey, thanks for inviting me to that church event. It was awesome. Hopefully I'll see you at the store sometime." A month later, we were dating, and we've been married for almost 18 years now.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations. That's so awesome.
I mean, she was truly my angel that came in and saved me. Ironically enough, we were actually both born at exactly 1:41 p.m. on our birth certificates. Different days, different years, but the exact same minute.
That is absolutely wild. So then it's easy going from there. Like, man, you know what? Hey, I mean, you get some Jesus and everything's fine, right? I mean, that's the golden ticket.
That is the golden ticket.
Conscious investor, you hear my sarcasm. You're familiar with it.
Yeah. I mean, what I had to do at that point was mentally go, okay, how do I get out of this environment? I wanted to make a change in my life. And so I had to step away from the party scene. I had to call my buddies up and go, dude, for me to get healthy, I got to step away. And they were all great with it. And we're still friends today, 20 years later. But, I basically took 6 months off from going to the bar, from hanging around with anybody. And what I did was I replaced that environment with men that were going to the church, that had great marriages, that had great businesses, that had great walks with Christ. And this is like pre-podcast days, but I was taking them out to Starbucks and going, man, tell me what your story is. How are you doing what you're doing today? And I just wanted to soak up as much information as I could. And so I had to change that environment. And it was in those moments that I realized that my past and other people's opinions of me don't define my future. And so at that point, it was like the door is open for a massive opportunities. And it was then that I decided to put that mission on my table to go, all right, we're going to change the legacy of the Allen tribe. We're breaking the chains of addiction, abuse, rejection, and all of that other stuff, and divorce, because both my parents and my wife's parents, they've been married and divorced 3-4 times. We said, when we say I do, we're not going to break that. There's going to be hard days. Not every year of 18 years being married is rainbows and sunshine. Right? Like, we're going to get in arguments and disagreements, but here's the cool thing is our kids will never experience what we had to go through. They do see us argue. They do see us in disagreement, but they see us make up. They see us slow dance in the kitchen. They see us kiss, and they see that and they go, oh yeah, that's right. Mom and dad aren't going anywhere. They're going to have disagreements, but we're here. We're building a foundation. We're changing the trajectory of the Allen tribe.
Preach it on that. Our kids, have that exposure. It's like, no, you don't need to be afraid if people are arguing, and especially in a respectful way. Totally. Yeah. It's okay. You're safe. And when they see our kids, absolutely, well, not my son, but my daughter absolutely loves it when she sees us kiss, she just thinks that's the best thing, because it creates this like deeper sense of security. It's so cool. Like when you create that environment, I love that. So I've spoken many times about, hey, sometimes you got to like change your circle. Actually, most of us need to shift our circle if we really want to reach our full potential. Yeah. And it's not a value statement as to these people are less valuable in the world. It's just, who do you want to become and what do you want to accomplish in the world and leave behind? So I love that, because I think I've done it in less eloquent ways. And so I love that you actually just hit it head on and we're like, hey guys, this isn't working out for me. I got to take a break. And you kind of did the whole, it's not you, it's me thing. And 20 years later, you're still friends. Can you tell a little bit more about what that process was like? And because there are a lot of people that recognize that they need to make that shift in their social sphere. And it becomes very uncomfortable. I've done it. My husband did it. He actually moved to Lake Tahoe, and that was how he was able to separate himself, kind of like, oh, bummer, I'm in the music scene. And, he's like, oh, bummer, I'm, get to go snowboarding every day. But all that to say, it is uncomfortable. It becomes lonely. And I'm going to add one more layer to this. My son and I were exercising a couple of days ago and talking about this. He wants to go sit at a different table in the cafeteria with some different people. And so we were talking about that. And we were talking about what does it look like when all of your normal friends aren't at school and how awkward it can be and such. So I'm just exaggerating, y'all, how that this is a big deal. And I don't think it gets enough attention. And so, tell us about shifting that sphere. Tell us about that process and keeping healthy relationships.
Yeah, it's so important. I think communication is key. If I was to just walk away and not return phone calls or anything like that to those guys, it would have been a different situation. But I think if you're communicating to somebody and you're saying, man, I'm struggling with this, I need to step away and I need to get healthy, whether that's mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever that is. If you communicate that to that person or whoever it is, and they give you crap back and they say, well, no, don't do that. Or you sissy, or don't do that. Like, they're not the right person that should be in your tribe in the first place. Right. Like, find those people that are living the life that you want to live and surround yourself with them. Because just being in your presence, like Ed said, they're going to lift you up. They're going to hold you accountable. When you say you're going to do something, like, not only hold yourself accountable, they'll also hold you accountable. And so, yeah, it is uncomfortable to change your circle, to change the people that you're hanging around with. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to have those communications or that conversation with the group that you want to walk away from. But in order for us to change, we've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. We've got to put ourselves out there and say, you know what? I have to do what's right for me and my family and those around me. And if that guy or that girl is not part of that, they're negative or whatever it is, they've got addictions and things like that, step away and know that you can come back to them once you get healthy. But you've got to work on you first, because if you're not healthy, you're not going to be able to have a healthy marriage or healthy, parenthood or anything like that.
Yeah, it all hinges on who you are and who you're showing up as. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you and I are both been on purpose in fulfillment, and really I love curiosity. I follow curiosity everywhere, not in all the right spaces. And so what I'm hearing also is that well, then what am I leaving for? Like, how do I know what my purpose is? Erik, that sounds all great and everything. I can recognize that I need to leave this group of people. But I don't know what I'm leaving that group of people for. I don't know what is around the corner. How do I figure it out?
I think you have to find what fires you up. And when I say fires you up, I mean emotionally, internally. For me, when I took that step away, I believe my purpose is to have communications like this. I love podcasting. It fires me up on a daily basis. I wake up and I go, man, who do I get to talk to today? It's my purpose to go out and hopefully impact one person. It's a personal goal of mine to put a smile on someone's face every day, whether that's virtually or in person. I want to be able to do that. And so I think if you're not sure what your purpose is, kind of write down things that excite you. Write down things that get you going. Like, is it quilting? Is it podcasting? Is it skateboarding? Is it talking in front of people? Try different things, but there's going to be one of those things, or maybe it's a couple different things that are going to just light that fire. And you go, man, this is it. This is where I need to put my attention to. And then you go surround yourself with those people that are doing that. And you can start, don't reinvent the wheel, right? There's already people doing certain things where you can come in and you can go, man, they're successful doing this, whether that's in marriage or business or podcast, whatever it is. And then tweak it yourself to fit your personality, to fit your purpose. And I think that's where our purpose really starts to make an impact, is when we do the things that we love, whether, we can try as much stuff as we want, but once we figure out exactly what we love doing, what excites us the most, that's your purpose. That's where you can make an impact. Deep dive into that, go all in on that.
Okay. You know how many times I've said that on the podcast. You've been listening. And so I'm going to ask you, this is one of the books that really taught me that. I don't know if you've read this, Super Coach by Michael Neal. I was really opposed to that whole concept. And I have no idea why. Maybe it was a family culture. I have no idea, but it was like, work should be hard. You should, work should be work, and you should feel like you're working, and it should be, hard, boring, tedious. I don't know and maybe that was just my own perception that I created, more than likely. Sure. Right. But that was my perception. And then I read this book and, I thought it was just like foo-foo juice. And I'm like, what, do more of what you love and you'll make money. What are you talking about? That's not true. Peter Drucker also has this in his book, Managing Oneself, which I recommend over and over again. It's an hour read. Everybody can do it. It's great. It'll transform your thinking. Same thing. Do more of what you love. Mm-hmm. So finding what you love to do. But we're not taught that.
Right.
Were you taught that?
Not even close. Yeah.
Okay. So then how did you turn that leaf? How did you turn that leaf and discover like, oh, wait, I love this. I love being like talking to people and inspiring them. And
yeah, it was really like the reason that I started podcasting in 2017 was I had a company called Top Rated MMA. It was an apparel company, back in the tap out days. And it wasn't selling anything. I was like, well, how do I stay in this MMA game, but not be able to have to sell stuff? Right. So I ended up donating the last 70 shirts that I had in stock. Right. And I was like, okay, I want to continue this. So I just said, I'm going to start interviewing MMA fighters and ask them, why do you want to get punched in the face? And that was literally the idea that I had.
I love it.
And I had no idea what I was doing. I'm in a walk-in closet. I'm using like the camera on my laptop. I have bad lighting, bad microphone. And I'm asking him this question. I'm not doing editing, and I'm uploading it to YouTube and calling that my podcast. And somebody says, well, how can I listen to it on Apple? And I said, what the hell is that? I didn't even know what Apple Podcast was.
Right.
And I did almost 100 episodes in that walk-in closet, not knowing what Apple was. I was doing it because I just loved that conversation. I was fired up every time I talked to them, like, oh my gosh, man, I can't believe this. And so I just started to evolve in my podcasting game. I was like, hey, how can I be better? And I started listening to people, and I started to realize that I'm a quitter. And when I say that, I don't mean that in a negative way. I had to quit thinking that I didn't deserve money. I had to quit thinking that I didn't deserve a great marriage. I had to quit thinking that I was, I had to quit hanging around negative people. I had to quit thinking that I didn't deserve a great life. And so once I did that, that's when I was like, okay, now I want to talk to business people, because business people and entrepreneurs, that's what fires me up too. And I asked them the same question. As entrepreneurs, we get punched in the face all the time. Why do we get punched in the face, but we keep going? What is it that pushes us through that? And so that's when I started what used to be called the Bearded Biz Show. I used to have a big, long beard. My wife, being the smart one, says, she probably changed the name. So yep, I changed it to the Erik Allen Show. But I think as you start testing waters and you start finding what your purpose is, God begins to open the doors for that other things to happen. And so here I was testing this whole podcast thing out. I end up landing a phone call with Ed Mylett because I won the Max Out Challenge on Instagram, which landed me a phone call with him. It was a 30-minute phone call, life-changing. And so I was like, I'm going to start a business podcast. And so here I am. I'm a nobody guy who lives in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, working out of my closet, right? And all of a sudden, I get Ken Shamrock, Sean Whalen, Ed Mylett, Tim Story, Brad Lee, Bedros Khalil, all of my show within the first 50 episodes. I'm going, what is happening right now?
Wow.
Like, this is crazy, So in my mind, I'm like, okay, God's opening this door. We're going to go all in. And so I just started training myself. Like, what are these guys doing on their podcast that I can implement on my show? Right. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I want to understand what type of questions are they asking? How are they presenting themselves? And that just ended up taking off. And so we're 400 plus episodes into podcasting now. We're 5 years in, and we're ranked in the top 2.5% of all podcasts globally. And, I love being able to have these conversations like that. This is my purpose. I love having these conversations with people.
These conversations, and you said it, a little bit ago, you said, I just want to impact one person. Like every day, one person, one smile, one. And it's interesting. And it has it, like Ed's book, The Power of One More, that was recently out. My book club recently read that. And if you haven't read it, pick it up and read it. I'm having my son go through it. He is not so excited about reading it, but his 30-year-old version might be excited. I don't know,
Sure.
but it's amazing. It just takes one. So think about that one conversation with Ed. Mm-hmm. But let's just dissect that a little bit. You did the work. And there's a consistency here is that you did the work, you did the max out challenge, which is a super cool challenge. And that landed you that you did you've done the work to get everywhere you're going. Even though you don't know what the outcome's going to be, you're in that pursuit stage. You're in that journey. But that one call with Ed, I'm going to start a podcast, a business podcast.
Yeah, it was, and literally I came across Ed by chance on YouTube. I was looking up motivational speakers and I come across Ed and I'm like, who is this guy? The beliefs and the values. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is awesome. And I just went back to his very first video I ever uploaded and I watched them all. And I was like, I'm hooked on this guy.
Yes.
And so, it was interesting because the day that I spoke to Ed Mylett, I spoke to Ken Shamrock 2 hours prior. And so here's this day, my mind is blown. I've got Ken Shamrock and Ed Mylett on the same day. The bummer part about this is a learning lesson too for podcasters. I'm recording my interview with Ken Shamrock and 7 minutes in, I look down, my recorder's turned off. I'm going, what is happening right now? I'm sweating bullets. I'm having a conversation with Ken Shamrock and I'm not recording any of it. And I'm like, what is going on? The way I was recording it back then was an app called Ecamm. And if you got a phone call, it disconnected it. And so he kept getting texts and phone calls and it would turn my recorder off. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't get anything out of this. I don't even get to release this thing, but I had a great conversation with Ken Shamrock. That's what's going through my head. And his team
was for
out.
you.
It was all for me.
That was for you.
Yeah. And cool thing though was about a week later, his team reached out and said, hey, how'd that show go? And I was like, oh, it was good. Unfortunately, I didn't get to record it. But there were some phone calls going through and they said, well, let's just reschedule it. And so they were nice enough that we rescheduled it. We landed the phone call and then I've had a second time on my show. He's such a great guy. But that day, having Ken and Ed on the same day was mind blowing for me.
It changes your self-perception. So, right. Like you see yourself in a new way. And this is interesting because I think a lot of times we're going through our transformative journey.
Yeah.
But we still identify ourselves as where we started instead of reevaluating, reassessing and saying, but this is who I am now. So we're holding ourselves to tomorrow's standards and tomorrow's goals, but we're not updating the person that we've become in that process.
So good.
Okay. This just, again, just so curious here.
Yeah.
How did you shift your identity then? Right. Because there's this moment where, and I was on a podcast yesterday and they made a very kind remark about what I do and everything. And also said, she's not going to view herself in this way. She's not going to see herself in this way. She will never say any of this, but I'm saying all of this. And I'm like, yeah, I would never say that. And that was my indicator to myself. I've been reflecting on, which is interesting how conversations always transpire. Right. And that is that we have to update the version of ourselves, because if we don't see ourselves as who we are and who we've transformed into, then we can't impact as many people in that same profound way. Like you were given this opportunity. So then now I'm turning to you and I'm going to ask this curious question.
Yeah.
How did you update? Like you have this moment where you're like, oh my gosh, kind of like me when I'm on a stage at different events where I'm like, how did I get this? This is amazing. Like you have to transform that thinking. What did you do to do that?
Yeah, there's two things there. Is one, I started to get grateful. Like I had always just lived life every day as like, yeah, it's another day. But it's a goal of mine to wake up each day. Like if I wake up, that's win number one for me. Yes. And I immediately go, man, thank you, Jesus, for another day to see and hug or hold my family. And then I jump out of bed and I make my bed. So there's 2 wins in 15 seconds. My brain is already going, yep, we're already stacking wins. Here we go. Yep. And so I get up to the office. For me, it's time in prayer and worship. So I kick on some worship music and I spend time just in prayer, and my prayers are very gratitude driven. I learned to just be grateful about things, man. Thank you for health and debt free and the house that we live in and my health around my family. And I think that shifted my perspective. Where I've been podcasting for 5 years, it wasn't until the last year that I really said, you know what? I actually do bring some value to the marketplace. I've been in the deepness. I've been in the trauma. I've gotten through that. I've been able to interview some of the biggest entrepreneurs in the world. And now I want to share that with people. I want to teach people how to do that. How do they connect with these big people? And so once I got confident in myself and knowing that, you know what, if I take a moment and step back and go, look what I've accomplished so far. I'm not done yet. Look what I've accomplished so far. I know that I can bring value to somebody who wants to do business with me. You know, I know that I can help somebody with their podcasting. You know, I do video content creation for brands. So they'll send me their boxes and I'll do like box open and how-to videos and things like that. I've done, you know, I've worked with probably over 50 brands on that stuff. So I know at this point, like I know the value that I bring and I just don't negotiate prices anymore. Or I used to go, oh yeah, they want it for $20 cheaper. Yeah, no problem. Now I'm just like, you know what? Here's my value. Here's my price. And if you don't like it, then there's other people that will do it. But I had to get confident in myself. I had to get confident in my value that I bring to the table. And I think that's what helps us earn that money. It helps us pay the bills, right? So you do have to shift that. You can't think of yourself as someone who's just going to ho-hum through the day. If you're alive today, there's a purpose and a plan left to be fulfilled in your life. So step into that and realize that you are valuable and you are worthy of earning all the money in the world that you want or all the relationships you want. You just have to be confident in yourself to be able to do that. Take a look in the mirror. I mean, if you stare at yourself in the mirror for longer than 10 seconds, it gets weird. But if you just continue to do that, you're going to go like, you're there for a reason.
That's uncanny that you would say that because there's so many people that, and conscious investor, like I encourage you to try this. I think I've mentioned this on a recent podcast episode, like look at yourself in the mirror. Do you actually love yourself? Like we spend an entire lifetime with ourselves, but we actually don't, most people don't really know themselves. And we're so busy in a negative space, criticizing ourselves and having these negative dialogues going through our minds instead of taking control of those thoughts, but looking in the mirror and saying, I like you. Like some people can't even look in the mirror and say, I like you, or give yourself a compliment and even just say, I love you. You're doing good things. That can be really, I have a friend that it took weeks for her. She had to have her back to the mirror. Couldn't even look in the mirror at herself, you know, like we have to really know who we are. Gosh, I love this.
Great conversation. I love this.
Oh my gosh. I want this conversation to just like last forever and ever, but I can't carry on conversation. I mean, I can't. Everyone knows I can carry on a conversation for forever, but I'd like to ask, you know, just as we wrap up, I want to ask, you know, like not a final question necessarily, because I might be really curious and ask you 5 more questions, but, you know, what would you say, you know, has been, since you've been podcasting, one of the most profound experiences? And we've already talked about the day you recorded with like 2 of the world's top tier people who I just thoroughly respect and admire. And, but, you know, aside, you know, we've already touched on that one, but is there another moment that you can see that podcasting or stepping into your purpose and living into the unknown, because you don't know what's on the other side, has just shifted things for you? Yeah,
I mean, the first time that I ranked on Apple Podcasts was a big one for me. I was like, holy crap, I'm actually ranking on the Apple Podcast in the US as an entrepreneur. Like, I think I ranked 133 last year and 202 on the UK podcast. So that was a big moment for me. But I think what impacts me the most is when people DM me on Instagram and they go, man, I listened to your episode and that was so good. I went through a similar thing and you just helped me go through this. Or man, I like the way that you think about your life and realizing that our past doesn't define our future. Thank you for putting that video out. It's those DMs and those messages that I get. They go, man, I'm on the right track here. Like I'm doing something I'm supposed to be doing if I'm impacting these people that I don't even know. They're from around the world and they're shooting me a DM. They're taking time out of their day to make a comment on a post or DM me. And for me, that's what gets me fired up. I'm like, wow. Okay. All right, God, like open the door, send me winners that I can, you know, put my story in front of or help get them on their life projection. Right. So it's those moments that fires me up. And podcasting for me is huge. And just the relationships that come out of podcasting, I've been blessed with going on trips and being invited to go on other podcasts. I was a guest on Brad Lee's Dropping Bombs podcast last year, which I flew down to Vegas for, and it was the coolest thing ever. But it's like this type of stuff. There's so much stuff that comes out of podcasting more than just great conversations. It's relationships, it's business opportunities, it's partnerships, it's networking. It's so much more than just this. And that's what I love about this is that deeper dive relationship, business, everything that comes out of podcasting it just fires me up every time. I'm like, oh my gosh, man, I get to do another one. Awesome. Let's do it.
Gosh, this is like investing in apartments, which is, what I love to do. And it's like, oh my gosh, everybody wins. I feel like Oprah, like my investors win, my residents win, the community wins, like I win, everybody wins. And it's the same thing with podcasting. Exactly like you said, my partners are people that I've had on the podcast. I know, like I get to know them and I get to see how they are. And so it's a win there, but also knowing that you're creating content that is just will outlive both of us, because there's no way we're going to be able to extract our content off of all the different platforms that it's on. So this content's going to outlive me, and somebody might happen upon it at some random time in the future, 50, 60 years from now. And who knows, could live on, could support other people for a very long time.
And I heard somebody say the other day, like, look, my grandkids may not know me personally, or my great grandkids might know me because I might pass before they're alive, but they can go search me on YouTube or Google and actually hear my story, or they could hear the podcast that I was on. And I'm like, I never thought about it that way. Like this that I'm doing right now is great, but I never thought about the future generations of my family that might be able to come and find me. I don't know. I can't go find stuff on my grandpa, right? But the technology has allowed me to now put my story out there where my great grandkids can go, hey, there's Grandpa Erik, man, and he's online and he's got a big fat beard, like that type of stuff. And so I that's what fires me up about this.
Gosh, I love it. Well, Erik, I seriously could talk on. There are like 100 other questions, no joke, that I have, just because I appreciate people that are authentic, that are transparent, and just being able to follow curiosity and unpack all the lessons that you've learned. Just like you said, at the very beginning, you were talking about, hey, I surrounded myself with a group of men and people that were doing the things and living the life that I wanted to lead. And that's one of the things I love about podcasting and having amazing guests like you is, it's just being able to learn even more and grow even further. So we all get to grow together.
Absolutely.
All right, Erik, we spoke a little bit about Operation Life at the beginning of the show and the Erik Allen show, but any other plugs, any other ways you want people to get a hold of you, connect with you? Because I know you're listening to this Conscious Investor and you're like, dang, he's on fire. I need more Erik in my life.
That's awesome. It's erikallenmedia.com is my website, ERIKALLEN media.com. I'm big on Instagram. So I love to, I don't say big as in I got a bunch of followers, but it's really a focus of mine. So I love to respond to every DM and every comment. So Erik G. Allen on there. Again, ERIK G. Allen. And then I just love connecting with people. And so Operation Life, that's part of that. It's just operationlife.com is the website. So if you want to register on there, if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. But I love just connecting with people. And I just want to say, man, anybody that needs some help or struggling, feel free to reach out to people. Don't sulk in that, man. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help for anything that you need. And don't let that emotional craziness hold you back from pushing through that fear. Go out there and ask for help if you need some help.
I love it. What a great way to end. So make sure you go connect up with Erik. And, I highly want to encourage everyone listening. Make sure you go and check out the Operation Life. If you're like me, you might have, a spouse that would benefit from this. And you know what, and you might be, my husband might listen to this episode and say, gosh, that resonates with me. So, regardless, it might be for you or it might be for someone, but it's not meant to just stay put. It's meant for you to share. You're hearing this for a reason and a purpose. And so make sure that you share that information with someone else. Conscious investors, you are amazing and I appreciate you. If you, I'd love to hear your feedback. go leave an honest rating and review on this episode so that Erik and I can know, like, great, that served you so well, that encouraged you, inspired you, whatever it is, please let us know. Until next time, live big, love bigger. What's the big deal about investing in apartments? Why is it better than investing in a slew of single-family homes? I've compiled a lot of information on why investing in a multifamily, also known as apartments, will help you reach your investment goals. Head over to 3keysinvestments.com and download the Why Invest in Multifamily guide today.